All right. Good evening, everybody. We finally made it. A little bit late tonight, but you know what? Better late than never. So we are very excited to be here tonight with you all, and we welcome you back to Keeping It Real. And as you know, we have been talking to Mrs. and or Ms. and then we call her sister Kim Jones because she's in our church
We call her
circles. And we
sister.
thank God that she's back with us again tonight. And we welcome her. And then we have a wonderful special guest that she brought along with her tonight in the person of Judge
In our
Szymanski. And we have my wonderful, lovely co host, my cousin, Dr. Val. So, listen, I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves in just a second. But what I would like for you all to do in the meantime is to please share. This is getting ready to be a wonderful show, and we want everybody to get an opportunity to hear this show and to be a part of this show and to get the information. I know we've got a lot of stuff going on here. Hang on a second. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on here. It's got a lot of feedback going, so just hang on a minute with me here. But share this program with anybody and everybody that you know. Share it with anybody and everybody that you know because we've got some important information that's going to be given on tonight. So let's start with my co host, Dr. Val. Do you want to say something to the audience?
Yeah, I want to say greetings again, and we look forward to this segment. I think a lot of good information is going to be shared. So you may want to go ahead and share it onto your network so people in your network can get this information as well.
Amen. Awesome. And then I'm going to go to my dear, lovely sister. Introduce yourself again, if you would, please, and tell them why you are here tonight.
Yes, hi. Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Kim Jones, and I am excited to be back with you. I think you know who I am. I've been with the Department of Health and Human Services for 34 years. I am happily retired, but I feel like I'm working again, but at my own rules. So I'm having a good time. I'm excited about being over the Parenting Time program, and I'm excited to be working also with my good friend and guest, the Honorable Judge Frank Szymanski.
Awesome. Awesome. And Judge, can you please address the audience? And we know who you are, but just tell them again and tell them a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Sure. So I'm Judge Frank Szymanski. I serve in the Third Circuit Court Juvenile Division. I've been serving my 18th year at this time, and want to thank all the voters of Wayne County who, gave me this wonderful position of service and gave me an opportunity to work with people like Kim Jones, who's really been a lion in terms of working this Parenting Time program, has done a fabulous job. I sometimes tell people once in a while I have a good idea, but ideas are nothing without implementation. And Kim has been an absolute all-star when it comes to implementing our Parenting Time program, and we have plans to expand it beyond our wildest dreams. So that's I guess a little bit about myself. So I'm married. I have two children. I just got back from my daughter's college tour trip. She's got, deciding she's going to go to school next year. And I've loved every minute of serving as a juvenile court judge. It's an opportunity to serve that is really like no other. And I really, when I got elected, my first plan was to go to the estate division as soon as I could, because that's where my father served, and my brother, Judge David Szymanski, and my father, Judge Frank Szymanski, served for many years. And that's what I was going to do. But then, I got onto the juvenile court bench. I started hearing about all these issues that kids and families have. And I was like, there can't be much more important work in the court in my mind. So I'm still here, 18 years going. So
Wow.
a little bit about myself. And I really am always looking to make a positive impact with either the kids or the families. As a result of being on the bench, I wrote a book called Identity Design, which is all about designing our identity to be powerful and productive and compassionate and serving in the world. So, I wouldn't have done that without being on the bench. And it was a great personal growth experience for me. And just as I say, always looking for ways to serve. And this is a great way for some of your audience members to serve, because God knows that the children and the families that we see in our court, they've suffered lots of trauma, lots of setbacks, lots of issues, and helping these individuals that are in our court is a fabulous way to serve and to improve our community. So
Yes.
just trying to share that.
No, that's awesome. What I love is that you just shared a piece of your heart. You know what I mean? Because for you to say, I wanted to go one direction, and that's what my plans were, but then I heard the call of a need for the community, for people, to help people, to make them better. And I love what information Kim sent me today, and Val, or Dr. Val, for us to view, because what I think that we miss is the fact that people need people, right? We need each other. And this program that you all are involved with and sharing with us tonight, the documentation says youth in transition. Is that correct? Am I on the right track, Kim?
Yeah, those are, I wanted to share, these are the youth that we provide services to. And we have 3 different programs. One is the Youth in Transition, which is a very, very important one too, and I'll explain that. And then we talked a little bit about YVAC. Some
Yes.
of your audience wanted to know, what is YVAC? The Young
Yes.
Adult Voluntary Foster Care Program. And I'm going to share a little bit about that. I'm going to let Judge talk a little bit about that, how when he's on the bench for the older youth, prior to dismissing the case, he wants to make sure that DHS has services in place for those youth who has aged out of the system. And he's going to talk a little bit about that as well. So yes, and then we have the Michigan Youth Opportunities Initiatives, those MYOI youth that also are part of the system, and they come in from ages 14 and up. So we'll talk a little bit about that so that your audience will know that the Department of Health and Human Services, and in partnership with the court, we do have services out there that are in place for our youth. And we're going to explore a little bit about that.
Okay. So, Judge, are you able to talk to us about one of those 3 programs that is closest to your heart? I'm sure all of them are, but which one is the driving force for you right now?
Well, I mean, we're always looking to help these kids, because you got to, if you think about kids that end up not being adopted, all right, and so they, you hear this expression, people say, well, they age out. I don't really like that expression so much. I like to say they age on. I think that's a little more positive way of looking at it, but they're moving on in their journey in this world. And if you think about somebody who doesn't have their mother or father here, or even a grandparent or somebody to really, keep them under their wing, we need to really help these kids, because the statistics with kids, the amount of kids that end up homeless or in prison or addicted to substances or any of these kind of negative outcomes, it's really staggering how many negative outcomes and how problematic these outcomes are, obviously. So something like the YVAC, let me talk about the YVAC program, allows these kids, as they've aged out of the court supervision, it allows them to continue to, get a stipend, they get some support. They are able to continue to engage in services. And I think it can go to, Ms. Jones, tell me if I'm wrong, it can go up to 24, age 24?
Well, right now, I know Michigan is trying to look at expanding the age limit. Right now, it's still from 18 to 21, the YVAC,
Okay.
the
So it,
YVAC services. So they are
um,
looking at expanding it. I don't think it's been done yet, but they're working on it.
so think about, if we think about ourselves, I mean, uh, when you're 20 or 21 years old, you don't have a parent to lean on, somebody who you can, rely on. You really need all the help that you can get. Most kids do. I mean, and most of these kids have been traumatized in one way or another. The fact that you're not being raised, you're not living at home with your parents, is trauma enough. But usually there's all kinds of additional issues that these kids have had to deal with. So I really think, YVAC and the support that it provides, it's just, one level to help try to level the playing field. I always tell people, look, when I grew up, I had two parents, Polish Catholics. They raised 7 kids. We all went to college. Most of us went to grad schools, and I didn't have the kinds of problems that I see these kids that in my courtroom have. And I had all this support. And when you don't have that, we have to find ways to, and Kim and I we'll talk, for example, about this, parenting time program or YVAC. These are all ways that we're trying to level the playing field, to give these kids a better chance than what they have without these services and without this assistance.
So my question would be, how are people to find out about the program? And this question is to either you or Kim, whoever wants to answer. How can the community find out about these programs other than their children or their friends' children ending up in the system? Because I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't have children. However, I do have family that ended up in the system, and God bless them to come out of the system. But what most people don't know, and what my family didn't know, is that there is a program that will take them beyond the age of 18. As you said, Judge, they age out. That is the terminology. And I love how you phrased it, age on. They don't know about that. But until something happens, now that person's in the system. Okay, now once they're in the system, they find out maybe if they end up before you, Judge, or if somehow Kim can get to them or they are led to her. But I'm going to tell you right now, firsthand, you don't always get it when you go to the DHS. They're not familiar with these programs. And if they are familiar, they're not giving you the information. So tell those listening now and later how they are to find out about these programs and be able to pass it on.
Kim, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, well, let me say this. This is why I'm on this show, Vicki, and I'm
Yes.
first of all, I'm so honored and grateful to be here because you are absolutely right.
We're
Some of the
honored to have
people
you
out
both.
there, they just don't know, and this is probably where even we need to do a better job within DHHS in getting that communication out there. And that's what we're working on, trying to do better, first and foremost. I have to say that we've got a wonderful director right now that's running Wayne County DHS, and I might invite her on one day. And she's working, her name is Lynette Wright, and she's working with the department and judge, the courts, as well as Bishop Ellis. But what you need and what you want to know is your audience needs to know that we have programs out here. The Young Adult Voluntary Foster Care Program is one of them. Now, these services, keep in mind though, they are for those youth, as you just said, whom has entered into care, okay, and have been into care, particularly with respect to the youth in transition. You have to be 14 at the time of getting those services of entering into care. But what you're saying is critical, because if some of the audience know about some of these services, sometimes our youth miss these services, even while in the system. They miss that opportunity. So that's why the court is educated. on what our DHS policies offer. Every judge on the bench and referee, they are familiar, for one, with these services. And they remind DHHS when they're at the table, they know more than what we do. We think that they don't, but Judge is very familiar about the YVAC program. And he'll say to his worker, so Johnny Doe is going to be 18. What services do you have in place? And then that's where these particular services. So Vicki, I'm thinking what we need to do is make sure we're putting this information out there, and that we're putting a face with that information, so that people like you and some of your audience are really familiar with some of those services. They may have loved ones that's in the system that may have fallen through the crack, or may be on their way. How do we make sure that those resources are available to them? And that's what we're working on doing better.
Yeah. Dr. Val, did you have something? You have to unmute yourself. Dr. Val, did you have something? Okay. All right. So here's what I want to ask you the question. Can you make clear to the listeners and the viewers what these services are? Because I'm looking at it in writing, but they hear us making acknowledgement of services. If I'm viewing it and I've never heard you and I don't know who Judge Szymanski is, I'm thinking like, well, what services are pertinent to me? Tell me what the pertinent services are.
Sure. Let me speak real quickly, and Judge, you feel free to chime in if you want. Let's stay on YVAC, okay? For YVAC, again, what it stands for is Young Adult Voluntary Foster Care. Now, these services are voluntary first and foremost to our youth. Our youth can reject it if they want. They can say yay or nay. We always try to explain, though, to the youth what the services encompasses. So if a youth is going to be graduating per se, or even struggling to graduate, the requirements to get into YVAC is one, you have to be in school. Okay. Now, some youth may be struggling and they may not graduate. You see what I'm saying? But they are working towards getting their GED. That will qualify them for being enrolled in the YVAC program, and or they have to be working a total of 80 hours a month.
Okay, let me stop you right there. If the youth doesn't have the GED, what steps do you guys take to help them get that GED?
We can help provide services through this program. We can.
All right,
we have services already, folks, in place for every youth that's connected in all of these three programs. So if they need help with getting a tutor, how can we help pay for that? That's what we will help them do. That's what YVAC does. Now, what I like about YVAC, with YVAC, the case is already open, okay? What I mean by that is they have a worker. They already have a worker, and that's what I like how YVAC works. When they get to the age of 18, Judge Szymanski is going to be looking to DHS to say, hey, look, Johnny Doe hasn't quite graduated. He dropped out, but he wants to do his GED. What is DHHS going to do? And that's what we'll talk about.
Okay, respectfully, I'm going to just stop you at different points so we can, people can understand the process. So the youth comes into the system from, let's say, the streets, no disrespect, but they come off the street into the system. Is that right? As a result of they got in trouble or the parents weren't there, right? Is that true?
Abuse and neglect.
Abuse and neglect. All right. At that point, they come into the system. What is the system? Where are they at that point? Whose hands are they in?
Keep it well there. And this is where, Judge, this is why I'm glad you're on. This is where let's say hypothetically, Vicki, a family of 4 came into care. Okay. And let's say the ages could be 12 months, 3 years old, 9 years old, and 15 years old. Okay. So that worker is going to be assigned to that particular family. All right. The Department of Health and Human Services, we're ordered to come up with what's called a parent agency treatment plan for that family, that mother and father. And those services can encompass, we talked briefly a little bit about that. If it's an abuse, if it's a physical abuse case, then Judge, and he can talk a little more, he's going to be looking for a psychological or psychiatric evaluation on the parents, right? That parent is going to, it depends. I hate to use abuse, but let's say physical abuse. There's going to be a treatment plan that's going to be developed, and that parent is going to have to successfully complete those services: individual counseling, family therapy, right? Parenting classes, right? Substance abuse, if that applies, a stable income, a stable, suitable, a suitable income and stable housing. So this is where the kids come in. This is where DHS provides those services, not just for mommy and daddy, but also for the family. The children
so
have to, okay?
At this point, the child is in a foster care home.
Yes, you have
That's
to be in
what
foster care to
Okay.
receive these services.
To
You have
receive
to
the
have
service.
been in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the point that they're in the foster care system now, somehow through the process, they end up before you, Judge. Is that correct? Or the caseworker brings the case before you?
The way they enter is there'll be a preliminary hearing. That'll be before a referee. Usually that starts out with a request to remove the children from the parents because the home is neglectful or abusive.
Okay.
And it might be, it could be anything from parent got evicted and has nowhere to go with their kids to a parent is seriously abusing their child. I had a case today, just, dealt with I hate to say it, dealt with the rape of a young girl. All right. So, you get that and everything in between. But what happens is the case comes before first you have a preliminary hearing with the referee. Usually by the time that it gets to me, because I don't do the preliminary hearings, but I have to adjudicate the petition. By the time it gets to me, those children, if it's a dangerous situation because, there's not a suitable home or there's an abuser in the home, that the children have already been removed from the parents. The children are now in foster care or preferably with a relative. All right. We always prefer to place kids with grandparents or aunts and uncles because it's much less traumatic, all right, than going to a home that you have no connection with at all. But that happens in many cases. I tell people all the time, if something happens to my kids or my brother's kids, they're not going to end up in the system because one of us is going to come forward and, wrap our arms around them and make sure that, we provide them with what they need. But the families that we see that come before me, they don't have, they don't necessarily always have somebody like that to come forward. So
that's why I'm asking the question, because and oftentimes when they came forward, unfortunately, kids got bounced, right, from one place to the other. And these programs that you and Kim and Bishop Ellis are bringing to us, which are wonderful, a lot of these people, they weren't offered these programs. That's why I'm asking, what is the process? Because after it gets into your hands, are you the one making the decision in the cases that come before you as to which program? Let's take, for instance, Kim, out of the three that you mentioned, how does that child get into one of those programs?
Yeah,
is it just like the YBAC?
They have a worker and they're referred. They're simply
so
referred.
The worker refers them. The worker refers
the foster care worker. Correct.
The foster.
Here's a question right there because
go ahead.
I'm unclear. So that's while they're in the system. They're in the foster care system.
Correct.
Just unclear once they have aged out or aged on, either way you want to look at it. Where are they as far as residence? What are the provisions at that state, especially if they have dropped off or if they have learning disabilities or if they're struggling with keeping a job? What is their residential situation and the humane needs?
Sure. Keep in mind, folks, I want to make sure you understand each one of these services offer assistance with housing. Okay. We keep in mind, We want to help these kids, or well, they're teenagers, become what? Independent, right? So we provide independent skills services. We provide, there's a worker always involved and assigned to these kids' cases, okay? I just got a bad way of saying kids when we know they're youth, but they're not out there by themselves. That worker is the same way. That's why, listen, the training that I'm teaching that we're doing is so good, and it covers all of this. It covers the front end involving CPS, which is what Judge is talking about. And then and he's going to tell you about once he adjudicates, foster care steps in. So Dr. Vale, that worker works with that team. Okay. If the teen is in, let's say in school, struggling, right, and not doing well, then it's up to that worker to go to that school, all right, meet with the counselor, have that child tested, okay, have an IEP done. Maybe that child needs assistance. And then that's how we determine that. You have an assigned worker, right, that helps them with that education to
Is
make
that
sure
their
that they get the
secondary
service.
education? Is
Pardon?
that their secondary education? And now they're 19 years old.
Yeah, yep. So
And
let's
they're
go to
no
that.
longer in school.
Let's go to that. We also have what's called, through the Youth in Transitioning program, YIT, services that helps them, and that helps them get into a secondary school. Okay. Remember, we talked a little bit about the TIP, tuition incentive program. If you look at our YIT services, there are so many things we can do with those kids. We can
Yeah.
help them, particularly in college. Okay, we'll make sure that if there's some special needs that they're going through, they'll have a special counselor that will work with them. Okay, so it's not like they're actually out there by themselves. We can keep their cases open until they're 21. Some cases, now when we say open, this is minus court involvement. There's no more court involvement. But these programs are geared to help these kids receive services from 14 to age 23. So what I like about that, Dr. Vale, any type of learning disability colleges, we can help cover some of their tuition. Okay. If a kid is getting ready to age out of high school, and we can help, if they're in the YIT program, help them, give them $1,500 to get their license. We can give them a first month's rent security deposit with an apartment. Okay. And we can pay up to $5,000 to help them get a car. So there's a lot of services that we do have out there that we wrap around these youth before
That's
we
what
just.
That's
Yeah.
what I wanted you to say. Go
And
ahead.
let's not forget, Kim, let's not forget a monthly amount that, a stipend that they can get, $400-500 a month.
Yes.
Who can't use that? Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and it's really sad because sometimes kids just walk away from this. They just say, well, I don't want to talk to workers anymore. And and it's really sad. And I always try to convince kids, if I'm losing jurisdiction, they're turning 19. So I won't have them formally on my docket. I'll tell them, I'll say, you want to take advantage of these services. They're there for you and they can help you. And another great thing to know about is, schools like Wayne State, Western Michigan, these schools have programs designed specifically to help students who have aged on from foster care, where they get, special counseling assistance, and the universities, do try to work to wrap their hands around these kids and really give them additional support that they don't have from, a family coming from a family like I came from.
So do you know, Judge, just an ideal, if you don't have exact, do you know a percentage of how many kids walk away that come through your court? Would you say?
It's not.
Sounds like it's not pretty. It's not.
Yeah. I couldn't give you a percentage. It's not a lot, but there are some. and they're usually, how do I want to say, they're some of our most troubled kids, right?
That
Because
walk away.
yeah,
That walk away. Yeah.
because they just, you know, think that everybody that's connected with the state, they don't want to have anything to do with them anymore, and it's sad. And you know, we have some really good workers, and we have some workers that aren't as good, and it's, you know, partly my job to try to help kids when I realize, you know, that if a worker's not doing what they're supposed to, then hey, I gotta, you know, step in and work to see that that situation improves for a youth.
Well, that's why I think shows like this, and I've said to Kim, and I agree, they need to be done more often because they're informative. Because really, honestly, the scuttlebutt about foster care is not the greatest scuttlebutt, as you know. And so this is why people come back saying, I don't want to have anything to do. Once they come out of that age of 18, they're just so glad to get out of the system because a lot of them have been bounced from home to home. A lot of them have unfortunately experienced bad situations physically as well as mentally. So that's why I wanted to do the show and have you guys come on and let the people know sometimes you got to tell them what's in the goodie basket. Instead of just saying,
Sure.
you know, let me help you. We've got programs. People want to hear particulars, like Kim said. Oh, well, you can put $1,500 in my hands for this, and you can give me up to $5,000, you know, for the purchase of, you know, a car or county allocation. You know, let's talk about that. So let's dig deeper into that. Judge, when they come into your court system, at what point are you deciding for them, or are you instructing the caseworker to give them a program, or do you choose the program at all?
Well, I don't generally choose a program, but I encourage, for example, with YVAC, you know, anytime a kid is turning 19, that, you know, that's one of the first things we talk about is, okay, do you know about YVAC? Are you enrolled? Are you engaging with your worker to make sure that you're going to be enrolled in this so that you can get these benefits, so that you can get these services? So it's that type of a discussion if we're in a situation where the youth is aging on.
And are they, let me ask one question, follow up to that, Val, 1 second.
All right, go right ahead.
No, you can come in after this question.
Okay.
Are they aware most of the time or no?
Usually,
Okay, that's good. That's what I wanted to know. Go ahead, Dr. Val.
So in the presentation, are you aware of this, or here's what we can do? You know, at those different stages of their growth and development, their comprehension levels are different. Their focus is different. Some have been in abusive situations and they're struggling with the trauma of that. So it's not like you and I that had a nice home and had normal circumstances, that we don't have to battle with those nightmares and those struggles and put defensive walls up around ourselves. Sometimes a plan needs to be put in place that will walk them up to that point. Now, when I went in for my undergrad, for example, they had a degree plan. Here's where we are right now. These are the things that you have access to right now. This is the first level of your degree. This is the first level in working towards your degree. Now, we'll help you to successfully navigate it with counselors, with tutors, with assistants. We'll make sure that you have something, a place to live, a place to eat. Now, that is so far, but there's more. So in the next phase of this program, then now you're at this age. So now some of the things that will be available to you. You may want to be on your own. We'll give you money toward a vehicle. We'll also give you a stipend every month. And they understand the plan like they did the degree plan every step of the way, as opposed to, okay, well, now you're 19. Have you heard of YVAC? You know, or whatever age, but at a stage and a progression that they can adhere to and they can absorb on those different levels. It's always something to look forward to. Always something that we thought about that too. And here is the next level. Congratulations, you pushed through this part. It wasn't easy, just like we were there for you then. We're going to be here for you in this next part. Here's what we have. Let's look at it and discuss. Is that the way? Do you think that that is something that can be kind of laid out a little clearer? Sometimes people need it a little clearer. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me add to that. I want to make sure you both understand that these are things that the department does. Okay, these are things that they are trained to do. Okay, there's policy. Everything that we talk about right now, you can view it on policy. I'm a manager. It is my responsibility to make sure that I am meeting with my workers. Okay, I am reviewing their caseload. And we mentioned people like, for instance, Johnny Doe, who's 15. The way it works for each child, if they've been in the system a while, they start off with semi-independent living, and that prepares them. They get the skills that would help prepare them to move to the next level of independent living. So that talks a little bit about your undergrad to the master part. Yes, those services, the communication is conveyed to that youth. We prepare that youth to get to those stage levels. That is the responsibility of the foster care worker and that worker's supervisor. Because if that's not happening, keep in mind, I want to make sure you all understand. From the minute a child is removed from court, there are quarterly court hearings.
Okay.
Every 3 months, we have to go back and sit in front of the honorable people like the Honorable Judge Frank Szymanski. These kids have attorneys that are aware of these services that are supposed to be offered them. It is my job to make sure that my worker, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, that we're rapping, we're communicating, we're meeting with that youth, and that youth understands about college. So yes, all of those things are definitely happening and are in place.
So my follow-up question was, okay, so that what my follow-up question was, or the statement is, those things would make the program very successful. And I guess there are no percentages at this point on how many people really successfully navigate the program, so that we don't have those tragedies that we have been having with, aging out, as most of us know it, and not knowing about these programs. We don't have percentages, but would you say the majority of the program works for the majority of those that are there?
And I would say yes. And as Judge said, though, there is that slim percentage where, unfortunately, that youth just didn't get the message. You get what I'm saying? And wanted to choose the streets as opposed to the services. So we're not 100% successful, but I'd say right now, today, because of the services that we have that are better now, the newer services that we have in place, if I had to guess, before I retired, I'd say we'd be 70% successful, 75% successful, because we don't want to see those youth fail. Okay, I want to make sure the audience understands that these services are in place. Workers are aware of what those services are, and they have to offer those services to those youth. Because if they don't,
go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Because if they don't, then somebody's not doing their job. You see what I'm saying? So we're going to hold that person accountable. And then if that supervisor's not doing their job, that person's going to be held accountable. So there's no way, I just want to make sure you understand, there's no way that the youth are not aware. We're communicating that because our policy tells us to do so.
I don't know if this is a fair question. I want to get back to the goodie basket in a second. And I don't know if this is a fair question to the judge or yourself, but is there a way that you are able to confirm whether, oh, you can't hear, Judge? He's lost. Say something to us, Judge. He can't hear us. I don't know. It could be we've not done anything. Oh boy. Oh
check
no.
Your volume.
Yeah, check your volume. While he's
we'll give him time to figure that out.
We'll give him time to figure it out. While he's figuring that out.
Oh, that's better. I can hear you
there
guys.
You go.
Somebody tried to call me and then I lost the sound.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if this question is fair to you and or Kim, but either one can answer it. Is there a follow-up system to know whether or not the workers are sharing the information? I think that's what Dr. Val was getting at. Is there a follow-up? Because again, we don't have percentages, but if we just go by everybody's, experience, is not good. I mean, the workers are not giving out this information. And if they're giving it out, it's not being given out as a way to draw them as much as it's being given out as a way just to be able to say, well, I told them. I told him, I gave it to him. And the children are not going to respond favorably to that attitude. So can you address that? You or Judge, can you all address that?
Well, again, it's kind of hard being if you're not on the inside of understanding what the protocol piece is, okay, as it relates to DHS or a child placing private agency. That worker is responsible, okay, for doing A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, I don't want to, we already mentioned all of that. But here's where we hold them accountable. The supervisor is also responsible in meeting with that worker every month, reviewing that worker's entire caseload. Okay.
So it's what she's saying, documentation. You're going to go by documentation.
Absolutely. And these kids are clever. And I tell my people, I used to tell my workers, I'll be honest, I had fun with them in training. I used to tell my workers, I'm going to make sure on my unit, you're going to dot every I and you're going to cross every T, because I never want to see any of my cases on the news media. So I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to know exactly what you're doing or what you're not doing. And if that child relative or some parent calls me or something and say that child didn't get this or didn't get that, I'm going to be right on it. And I'm going to hold them accountable. And that's what every manager should be doing. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, it's really hard, Vicki, for you, or Dr. Val, for a person to just miss not offering services for these youth. No way. Because here, you can't do that and then go to court and expect to get away from it. You see what I'm saying? So the court holds DHS response accountable, if I may say, Judge, holds the department, can hold the department accountable if certain services are not put in place.
Can I ask a question? So in a lot of cases, there are going to be certain ones with that decision that they're just, I've gone as far as I want to go. But as it was mentioned, at that young age, their brain is not fully developed to make all the proper decisions. That needs to be taken in. And, if you say, well, okay, this is what's next, do you want to do that? But I have been with, those types of that particular discipline, and they'll offer it to some enthusiastically and just mention it to others. So is there a study or a review or a way to look at the demographics of, do we have a pattern of the ones that is there a pattern of the ones that fall out of the program without having taken advantage of it? Or is there a specific dynamic? Or does this particular person seem to turn out more people in that 70% and others may not? I just say that because of so many factors are there. It's obviously if there are policies in place, but I've seen, opportunities that may have had to be approached in a different way. And as Pastor Vicki was saying, even the way you present it, it's all about the presentation. It's about the communication. And
Yeah.
it may just be, you're going to press it here, but, you'll mention it and not even give eye contact. That's even a difference. So how is it, or have you looked at it, that's other, if you had to guess, 70%, that other 30%, were there any similarities there, or were there any particular disparities that you noticed?
Judge, you want to comment?
I don't, for me, the kids that walk away from these services, if there's, if I'm, and I don't have like, a study that's been done, I'm just trying to think of what I recognize, or what I can surmise is, these are kids that probably come from the, suffered probably more trauma and, just got somehow attracted to, the streets, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, they're just convinced, and I agree with you. We know that the prefrontal cortex doesn't really fully come online till, the mid-20s. So, these kids are in, difficult situations to begin with for anybody. And then on top of that, they're kids. They don't have the full, brain power that they would have or will have once their brain fully develops. So, as I say, I just, if you ask me, is there a common thread? It's, yeah, really troubled kids.
So then my question then, when you know that there are those that have those, maybe fuller development of the program to reach that demographic as well, because I can see that I've known people who come, nobody graduated out of that house. Nobody even came through high school. And then they moved and moved and moved. And one person there was determined that no matter what, I'm going to finish high school. I'm going to finish it at the school I started from, no matter how many buses I have to take. Yeah, everybody else is dysfunctional and they're sitting here. But in my head, I know this is something that I want. I've been exposed to the trauma as much as everybody else in the house. And then when that's done, I still have a quest for more education and a career. So it's the trauma, and then there's the ones that have dealt with the trauma, but have the stamina and fortitude to still press towards a successful outcome. They know they don't want to live a life that is a life of demise. So even a fuller development of the program for the ones that just suffer trauma and just are in a world of confusion. That's where some other counseling and some other educational programs to help them even survive that, because if they don't survive that at that age, when they get older, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? When they get older, and then they're now, you didn't press through this, so then now they're out there with the mind of a younger person, undeveloped mind, and all of this trouble. So even reaching in deeper is what my hope is.
Good point. Can I share something real quickly? Okay. Judge, just I want to real quickly just take 60 seconds. The training that we are conducting for the Parenting Time program, and Judge, you can chime in if you want. Just want to tell you real quickly, we talk about the prevention part of the system, We have services that we can put in place to families that we can kind of help, hopefully preserve the placement. Then we have CPS talking a little bit about what's going on. We talk about the mental health component. We talk about foster care component. But I wanted to share this because you made me think of it, Dr. Bell. We had a youth that had been in foster care, y'all, since 2 years old. He's about 23 now, 24. His parental rights, his parents' parental rights were terminated. So he grew up in the system. Did he ever get adopted? He was adopted, and then it was a broken adoption. He had problems. He kept going in and out. When we'll get him placed, he'll end up doing something. He'll get in trouble. He'll go into juvie. He'll come back out, and he always stayed connected. He remembered people like myself. I had him when he was younger. He would still come and visit me. But I'm trying to say this. It took that young man to go to jail, get out of jail. He's going to church now. One of our workers goes to Gilbert Allen's church. He's gone to church now. He's came to my former church, Greater Grace Temple Taylor, to one of our church family picnics. He goes to church regularly. He came to one of the trainings to talk about his experience, Dr. Bell, and he said he just didn't get it. He didn't want to get it. But it took years later for him because we savaged him. We saved that kid. But he almost had fallen out of the system at his own doing because he rejected the services that we had available. But he was talking about that, had people in tears because he had to get knocked down, beat up, go to jail, get out, and he's working now. And it's a beautiful story now. He's still struggling a little bit. He has 2 children, but he now he can see better and can understand. He still looks up the different counselors that he's had. So you made me think of that, Dr. Bell, and that's something that, we should probably think about what you're saying. Come back to the table and look at those percentages. Can't capture them all, but for the most part, the majority are doing well. And this particular youth is a prime example. He talked about that. He said, I didn't give up on him. He had people like me. And I sometimes, to be honest, I kind of would get tired. Oh, so-and-so, what have you done now? I would think like that, but I never showed him that. I continue to wrap my arms around him. I listen to him. And so I'm just saying, he's just one of few that we can proudly talk about. That's
congratulatory. Well. That's congratulatory to you. And we're going to get ready to wrap it up. But I want to say this, that it goes back to your approach. I was thinking exactly what you said. He remembered you because of how you gave your approach to him, your heart, your attention, your seriousness.
Amen.
Judge, before you leave tonight, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming. And I love the fact of how you started out about your heart and what made you turn towards trying to help the community, the youth. Can you tell me and the audience what you specifically do in your courtroom to help that youth that comes, that you see you needs to make that change? What do you do in your system?
Okay, so
and Vicki, before he answers, I want him to add also what was it that laid it upon your heart to start the Parenting Time program? Because you are the reason it exists.
Well,
in addition to what you asked.
So, yeah, let me, and I know we're time. So, but there's 2 points I really want to make here, and let me start with what you said, Kim. So, some of you are familiar with the Annie Casey Foundation, and they are very committed to improving outcomes for young people. And they had a speaker come in and do a presentation for the judges and I think the referees, and he mentioned a statistic, And Kim knows I pound the table with the statistic every time I talk about the parenting time program. I call it flex time parenting because, we expect parents to have an income, to have a job, but then, we want them to visit with their children. And sometimes they can't do it because they got to be at work and DHS offices close. And then, well, who's going to supervise their visits with their kids?
Mm-hmm.
So I heard this statistic. Judge Thorne he travels around and he does presentations for the Casey Foundation. And he told us that there is research that says that for every additional hour of visitation that parents get with their children when they've been removed from their home because of abuse or neglect of one sort or another, you triple the chances of a successful reunification. Think of that. For every additional hour they get with their kids, you triple it. Can you get a return on investment like that anywhere in this world?
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, that's phenomenal. So
Yes.
I always talk about that. And when I heard that, I said to myself, because I supervise these cases and I hear about, these parents that, well, I can't visit. The only time I have is on Saturday, or the only time I have is from, 6 to 8 o'clock at night. And, I have to be at work and everything else. So I thought about it and I said, well, and now with a lot of people, and again, I'm going to go back to my family. If somebody was removed, well, my brother or sister, if my kids were ever removed from me, God forbid, that's not going to happen. But my brother would say, well, if you need somebody to supervise visits between, Frank and his kids,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it, and I'll pass a background check and everything else. So the thing is, these families, they don't have somebody like that. They don't have like a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or somebody who can supervise. So and I know that there are people and God bless the faith community of our county, because there's people that are, begging to help out in these situations. And I said, we just need to get these people in a room together. So, I started with Kim and Bishop Ellis from Greater Grace Temple, and God bless him. He really has a heart for kids that experience foster care. He totally understands. That's why he's working on this sanctuary project too. I want to tell him, the first time he told me about this, I said, Bishop, you want to retire from being one of the most respected members of the clergy of Wayne County, and you want to open this? I said, do you want your head examined? I mean, that was my, God bless him. God bless him. Absolutely.
Yes.
But anyway, so, I said to myself, I know there's people in our community that would be happy to supervise these visits, that would volunteer to do this work. And I've worked with the faith community. I've been, they've had me present at different gatherings that they've had, and it's always a great experience. But, I just knew that this could be done. I knew this could be done. So, and I, Kim and I talked about it, and she, got the bishop involved, and he was totally supportive. And Kim will tell you, it took us over a year to get it started, because there's, DHS had all these concerns, and then Bishop, of course, he had his board of trustees involved and his administrative, and they wanted to know who was going to pay for the insurance and everything else. And there wasn't going to be any insurance. And I told, I remember telling this trustee, we were on the phone, I said, listen, if there was a flood in your neighborhood and these people came to your church door and they needed to be put up for the night or something, you wouldn't be asking them, where's the insurance? You'd be opening your doors and letting them in and helping them out. And I said, that's what we need here. And, there's a lot of different ways, and God bless your listeners. I'm sure there are people listening that say, that would raise their hands, and probably raising them right now. Hey, I want to help too. So,
Yeah.
we'll get contact information if they want to, help out. Kim is, really the flag bearer. I just came up with an idea, and then I managed to get enough people to agree with it that now we've got a program. So, and that's the way these things are. So that's one. Two, I want to make one other point here, and I really, I just really want. I hope that if people get nothing else, they'll think of this. So, I did a presentation for the Supreme Court Administrator's Office last year on what I believe are some of the most important things that we can do for these kids. And I'm talking about ancient practices, I'm talking about meditation, mindfulness, yoga. These are things that have been around for thousands of years. I've been doing these practices for over 20 years myself. They are the best thing that I do for myself. And I'm working to get, and I've brought meditation instructors and yoga instructors in. And if we have anybody listening who is one of those types of instructors or knows somebody and wants to volunteer to help our kids, please let me know, because I'm always looking for more people. Because when I was sitting on the bench and I started hearing the kinds of things that these kids are dealing with and these parents are dealing with, I said to myself, there was one word kept coming to my mind: peace. Peace. These kids need to have a sense of peace. And, and that's what these practices do. They give you tools. They give you a tool to slow your mind down so that you can be thoughtful and productive and not be reactive and not be impulsive and not get in trouble. So, and I'm actually serving the last year of my last term. I am aged out. The state of Michigan is not going to let me serve. I can be a visiting judge, but I cannot serve. I couldn't run for re-election again this year. And what I want to do is I want to go pretty much full time into advocating for the adoption of these kinds of policies, because I know the difference that they can make. And there's and let me give you this. I'll give you something specific that people can check out. I'll give you 2 websites that people can look at if they're interested. So there's a website, tm.org. That's the Transcendental Meditation people. And I've worked with some of the teachers, and I've had them work with our kids. And we brought them in and worked with some of our juvenile justice, our worst offenders, carjackers, assault, felony, individuals guilty of felony assaults, assault with intent to murder, these types of kids. We brought in a meditation teacher who worked with these kids, and I went up and meditated with them. They were all in a secure facility. I meditated with them. It was powerful. These kids, they had only learned meditation a week before, and I went up and meditated, and it was like they had been meditating their whole life. They did a fabulous job. Of course, we had a good teacher working with them. So, that's something that, and we asked them, how did they feel about learning to meditate, as opposed to all the counseling they got, all the group sessions they got, all the other different interventions, medication, anything else? Do you know what they said? Every one of these kids, not just half of them, not 70%, not 90%, every single one of these kids said the best thing that anybody had done for them in the quote system was teach them how to meditate.
Wow.
That's why I advocate for these principles, these policies. And so I gave you tm.org. I'm going to give you another website. And this other website is one that is it's a nonprofit out of Florida. And they're active in thousands of schools across the country. And I've visited classrooms where they have this program. They have a mindfulness program where students listen to a recording, and it teaches them how to, do some deep breathing, and it teaches them how to deal with challenges, obstacles, different things. And there's a school, I'm going to tell you the most inspiring story in education I have ever heard. They started this program in a school in Florida, and it was a school where, are you ready for this? 80% of the kids were homeless. 80%. 95% of the kids. I hope Dr. Vitti is listening. Actually, I want to share this with you.
I'm writing it down.
So listen to this. Listen to this, because this is insane how positive this turned out. So this was an F-rated school. Now you would think, well, that's easy to accept. These kids don't even have a home, and 95% of them are on government assistance. What kind of school do you think they're going to have? Well, after they adopted this program, they went from an F-rated school to a C-rated school. And then they went to a B- rated school. And then they went to a B+ rated school. And in 5 years of using this program, this mindfulness program, InnerExplorer, they became an A-rated school, the shortest transition from being an F-rated school to an A-rated school in the history of Florida education. And
what's the program, Judge?
The program is so the website is InnerExplorer, INNEREXPLORER, InnerExplorer.org. And I'm working to get I want all the schools in Wayne County to adopt this program. Why wouldn't? And there's research that says not only do they, scores go up, burnout for teachers goes down, attendance goes up. We've got a terrible chronic absenteeism problem in this county, and Detroit Public Schools is as bad as anyone in terms of how serious this problem is. And this is a program. It's very simple. You sit there. I was in a classroom of first graders, and they were asked at the end of, they did a little InnerExplorer session. This is, they've been doing it for the year. I forget what time of the year. This was last year. I went and visited. And the InnerExplorer representative that was there asked the kids and said, so how many of you think that this program is making a difference? How many of you want to, continue, appreciate this program? You should have seen those hands. They went like this. Every one of them, they would have shot their hands through the ceiling if they were
Wow.
tall enough. These kids loved this program because, it teaches you self-regulation. It's tools, it's discipline that we all need. So I've given you, the best of it. So that and believe me, that's what I'm going to be working
Powerful.
with. And I will, Pastor Taylor, I'll send you, I actually have a couple of clips that are up on YouTube that are excerpts from the program that I did from Scale. And I had people tell me, Judge, you should be giving this presentation in every city in the country. So I've got some clips up on YouTube. I'll be happy to send them to you if you're
interested. I wish you would. And I wish we had more time, because I still wanted to get to some questions and the answer of what you do in your courtroom. But I think I kind of understand how you are able to implement it through those, some of what you're talking about to some of the people that come through your courtroom. But I kind of want you to be able to say that, because what I understand you saying may be different than what someone else is construing. But appreciating all the information that you've given, understanding you all that we cannot, as Kim said, you can't save 100%. You're always going to have some percentage of casualties. That's in everything. That's just life. Where there's good, there's bad. Where there's up, there's down. But we thank God for the 70% or whatever greater percentage that of success you all have mastered. And we stand behind you. And I want to talk to you after the program, you and Sister Kim, about how SALT can get involved. I'll get into that with you after this program. Thank you so much for coming. Judge, I appreciate you. I had the pleasure of working with your father. back in the day as a court reporter. And so the Szymanski name, I told Kim, Szymanski name has always had a very, very good reputation. So hats off to you. I'm happy and humbled to have met you, and I welcome you back. I would love for you to come back after you, go on, after you transition out.
Hey, John,
After you go on.
They're going to let me age on.
Age on. And Kim, you already know this platform is open to you. Judge, this platform is open to you anytime. And we will push this program. It's on actually 3 different platforms right now. It's going to go to all the platforms. So just know that it's on YouTube, everybody. Everybody, please continue to share and look out. SALT's going to become involved with this in a way that I did not even imagine until Judge Frank Szymanski came to this platform tonight through Kim Jones. We thank you, oh God, for how you have blessed Kim to be such a lighthouse for everybody that this program touches and will touch. God bless you all. Have a wonderful night.